It's heartbreaking to hear some of the stories, particularly from locals who are really concerned for their own safety, for the safety of their parents, of their kids. This is one of the most beautiful parts of our country, and I always feel a great privilege whenever I come to Alice Springs or to the Northern Territory, and there would be many more Australians who would want to come to the Northern Territory, but at the moment are making a decision not to. And in fact, we've spoken to a number of locals who are making a decision to leave and to relocate to some other part of the Northern Territory or indeed to another part of the country. And that is devastating, because if you look at the tourism numbers at the moment, the tourism numbers we were told about, that just came out from the Easter period, they're down by 40%. Now, Natasha Files can say that there's nothing to see here in Alice Springs, and the Prime Minister can refuse to come up here and spend any tangible, real engagement with the people on the ground here in Alice Springs. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a problem. And when you move around the community and as we walk the streets, talking to people about their own issues, there is a common theme here. You can't have a situation where the rule of law only applies to some but not others in a community. You can't have a situation where people have a fear, and a lot of people have spoken to us about this sort of curfew that's self-imposed, where they get home and lock themselves in their homes, and that is a terrible situation, and it wouldn't be tolerated in any other part of the country, certainly not in any capital city. We're speaking to a business owner this morning who gave the unbelievable account of the fact that in his block, in the building where his business is, in January of this year, they were broken into on 18 separate occasions. I mean, think about that. In Brisbane or Sydney or Hobart or Perth, I mean, would that be tolerated? There would be public outrage, and somehow we're treating Territorians as second-class citizens under this government, and it has to stop. You need to restore law and order. That's the first thing that needs to happen. The fact is that the Prime Minister promised $250 million when we first raised this issue back in October. There is no evidence of that money being spent on the ground, and speaking to a lot of operators and those who deliver services on the ground here, their view is that there's still a committee stage going on about where that money will be spent. Linda Burney will say, well, wait for the Voice, and the Voice will sort it out. The Voice vote is in October of this year, and then there is a 6-month consultation period proposed if the Voice gets up to work out what the design of the Voice actually is, which is a cart before the horse situation, but that's a separate discussion. So you're talking about mid-next year. The bureaucracy will then have to be formed around the Voice, so that'll take you out to the end of calendar 24. And you've got kids here tonight who are going to be sexually abused, or families where domestic violence has now become a current occurrence, and we're told that nothing can be done about it. I just find it completely and utterly deplorable. And the emotion, the people that we've spoken to in tears about a town that they love being torn apart by the lawlessness that they're seeing play out before their own eyes. The video of kids running rampant in the local CBD, somebody is going to be killed here. And somebody was killed here in 2021. Somebody obviously has lost their life tragically, equally tragic in Darwin. But we're going to see further tragedy here. And unless the Prime Minister steps in and restores law and order, that can only be done by supplementing the efforts of the Northern Territory Police with the Australian Federal Police. And I call again on the Prime Minister to make sure that that is an action that's rolled out. If Natasha Files, the Chief Minister, is saying there's nothing to see in Alice Springs, then the Prime Minister should overrule her, because he should listen to the people on the ground here and start to restore some dignity, protect these kids from continued violation of their own human rights, and make sure that people can do what they want to do as they would in any other part of the country. Take their kids to school, go to the park, go out to a restaurant, be involved in life in Alice Springs. That's what they want to do, and it's what we would expect for any Australian. And the Prime Minister really needs to step up and to step in here and make sure that we can see a better future for Alice Springs.